Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you a episode review from the classic Goosebumps TV show. And this is a season 2 episode, and it's called Let's Get Invisible. Yes, I have this little kind of rare Fox Selections Attack of the Jack-O-Lantern, paper DVD thing, and it came with Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns, Vampire Breath, and Let's Get Invisible. So I'm using this as reference for the video. And I think this is the final episode on this disc I need to talk about. So, Let's Get Invisible was a season 2 episode. It's one of those regular 21-minute episodes. It was written by Rick Drew and directed by Ron Oliver. Oh boy. I can, when I hear those two names, I don't even have to ever see the episode before I go into it, knowing that I'm about to get some funky music, some weird angles, some weird effects, and some weird character dialogue and choices here. But this is a pretty fun episode, for what it is. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, and I'm gonna say this up front. I really love a lot about the book. This episode, to me, unfortunately, and I'll save what I really want to say in the book versus episode video, but this doesn't come close to the love I have for the book. Yeah, this episode has a lot of Ron Oliver mannerisms all over it. It has some Rick Drew writing mannerisms on it. But it's still, for the show standard, this is a good episode. So off the bat, if you have not seen Let's Get Invisible's episode, go check this out. This is a fun one. I don't think you'll be all that disappointed. So, let's get into the plot overview without giving too much away. So, the episode starts off with these two kids, Max, who's the main character, and this girl named Erin. And they're in Max's attic, and they're rummaging through some boxes, maybe to go through some stuff to get rid of, maybe donate, whatnot. So they're going through these boxes, and these boxes almost topple over on top of Erin, and Max saves her. And he catches a shoe, and they make a joke and make a laugh out of it, but they hear some noise coming from this old, cubby off in the corner of the attic. So they go investigate it, and there's a jump scare. And it turns out there's this kid in a mask, and when he takes the mask off, it's Noah, Max's little brother. He's a little prankster. And Max throws the shoe at him. He's like, I'm not impressed with you, but his little brother catches it with his, left hand. He goes by Lefty in the book, in the real book, but he just goes by Noah in the episode mostly. And he's like, Lefty's rule, and throws it back at him. But when the shoe hits him, he knocks over some stuff, and it causes a chain reaction, and all this stuff falls over and hits the attic wall and busts a hole in the wall. And Noah's like, look what you did. And he goes over to investigate it, and he's like, oh, there's something in here. So he crawls through the hole, and he signals everybody else to follow him. And they find this room with a bunch of wooden furniture, and it's old and dusty, and there's nothing really in there but this giant mirror with a light on it. And when they need to have a light source, Max goes over and says, here, I'll turn this light on here. And when he pulls the string, Erin and Noah are at a loss for words because Max goes invisible. And they're like, Max, where'd you go? And he's like, I'm here. And they're like, oh, we can hear you, but we can't see you. And then he's like, what are you talking about? And he pulls the switch back down, and then he becomes visible again. And the two say, you're not going to believe us, but you went invisible. And he's like, really? Oh, cool. And Noah's like, we should make this our hideout. We need to come back here one day and, another day and check this mirror out. And Max is like, okay, but you can't tell anybody this room exists. So after that, Max, is about to leave. He's kind of looking back at the mirror, and cuts to the next scene where he's gargling some mouthwash in the bathroom. And bless the kid who plays Max, y'all, but he has the most blank face I've ever seen in an actor in this show. I mean, he has mouth expressions, but he has no emotions shown through his eyes whatsoever. And every time I see this mirror scene, I just laugh. I'm like, oh my god, this looks weird. So he's standing in this like this little bathroom mirror, and there's like one mirror, two mirror, three mirrors, and he's just looking like blank stares into the mirror for like 5 seconds. It's so weird. But he leaves the bathroom anyway. He leaves the bathroom, and he brings this flashlight with him, and he goes up to the attic, and he, wants to go investigate the mirror himself, and he tries to look at this cord earlier where he saw that the power wasn't plugged into this mirror. So he's like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with this mirror. How come the light turned on without this outlet being plugged in? And he's scared by his little brother Noah, and Noah's like, "Boo, I got you." And Max wants to get rid of him and say, "Hey, get out of here." He's like, "No, I'm going to wake up Dad." And Max is like, "Fine, but you got to be quiet." And of course, Noah wants to get invisible. So Max and Noah get invisible together. Noah decides to go over to a part of the room, grab a sheet, put it over his head, act like a ghost. But then they both start not feeling well, so they turn the light back off, and they turn back to being visible. And Max makes Noah promise that he's not going to do this by himself because there's something wrong with the mirror, and they have to figure out what's wrong with it. And Noah agrees, and Noah says, I know you want to tell Mom and Dad about this, but maybe we should keep it to ourselves for a little bit. And Max is like, all right, we can do that. And they both head out of the room, but then it cuts to a vision shot of the mirror, glowing. You're like, okay, something's wrong with this mirror. So the next day comes around, and Max's friend Zach is over, and so is Aaron. And being a Ron Oliver and Rick Drew episode, the mom is like a crazy cyclist mom wearing some really loud outfit. So she's gonna go out, do whatever, and she leaves, and there's the guy who plays Zach, right? They're all supposed to be like 12 and 13-year-olds, but the guy who's playing Zach has clearly already hit puberty, clearly already a full-blown teenager, possibly even an adult. He's like 16 or 17, and he's noticeably older than all the other kids here. But you just suspend your disbelief for a minute. So they tell Zach that there's something upstairs that's going to surprise him, and he's like, all right, well, impress me, because, he was bragging about his earring, and, Max kind of signaled to his mom, and his mom's like, no, don't even think about it. So they go up to, there's a line I think Aaron says is like, this is the greatest thing in the universe. And then the next scene, it cuts to, Zach looking at invisible Aaron and invisible Max throwing a ball back and forth. And he's like, this is the greatest thing in the universe. Terrible acting there. Terrible. But it's hilarious. It's so funny. It gets me every single time I watch this episode. But he's watching them throw the ball back and forth, and they're talking about how cool it is, how cool it is to be invisible, and then they start not feeling well. And they're like, turn the light back on. Turn the light back off. And Noah's there, and Noah just decides to go and turn the light back off. So he does so. And it takes a while to come back to being visible. And they're like, yeah, we're not feeling well. And Zach is like, well, let me go next. He's like, no. There's something wrong. We need to do an experiment. We have to see how long we can last without feeling like ill. We got to see, if this is a viable thing we can do like long term. So, Noah's like, well, no, it's my turn. And he's like, no, this is not a toy, Noah. And he's like, we're doing an experiment. So Max goes over to the mirror and turns himself invisible again. But almost immediately he goes and disappears. And all the other kids are like, Max, where are you? Max, what's going on? And they're frantically trying to get Max to come back. Noah tries to pull the string. It's not working. And Erin comes up with this idea to get a string, tie it, from her necklace, and ties it to the broken string and pulls it down. And Max takes a while to come back. And this time, Max is really shaken up, and Zach and Noah haven't taken their turn to get invisible yet. He's like, enough with the mirror today. And Noah's upset, and Max makes Noah make a promise that he's not going to mess with the mirror. And Noah crosses his fingers, saying, oh yeah, I'll promise, but he's really faking it. So, later on, when it comes time for dinner after Zach and Aaron leave, Max is at the dinner table talking with his parents. He's like, hey, where's Noah? And he notices a bread roll flying from the table. He's like, Noah must have got invisible. And he did. Noah's at the table. He saw him drinking milk. And in this scene, typical Ron Oliver-isms all over this scene. You have this let's get invisible, like, I don't know, Halo type of music. It's like boing, like that kind of music. And then you have this really funky, weird, odd, out of place song playing along with it. Like, just really bizarre. Trying to make this family scene here seem a little bit hunky-dory. It's kind of cringe. But, once Max realizes Noah's there, he invisibly tries to take, visibly to his parents, tries to take open air away. And he's like, I'm going to go find Noah. So he takes Noah up to the attic door, and he's like, come on, let's go up to the attic, and let's get you, fixed. And Noah's like, well, I'm not feeling well. And then Max loses his touch, and he's like, Noah, where are you? And he goes up to the attic, and he sees the lights off. He's like, Noah. And he's like, oh, I'm here. And he's like, okay, how are you? And he's like, oh, I'm fine. This mirror's creeping me out. We need to stay away from this. And Max is like, yeah, you're right. Let's just stay away from the mirror. No more doing this. So they both leave, and they agree that they're going to handle the mirror later. So the next scene is Max. He's coming home from baseball, and his mom tells him that his friends are upstairs in the attic waiting for him. And Max is like, oh no, I got to tell them that we need to stop with this mirror stuff. And he gets up into the attic. And this is basically the climax of the story. He gets up there, and he sees Aaron onlooking invisible Zach. And Zach is like, oh, this is so cool. I'm so happy to be invisible. And Max is like, that's cool, Zach, but we need to get you back to being visible. We need to stop with this mirror stuff. But before they can, get Zach back to normal, Zach starts to not feel well. He starts to grow distant. His voice starts to sound weird. And then he kind of disappears. And they're like, where's Zach? What's going on with Zach? And they turn the light back off and wait for Zach. And then he comes back. And when Zach comes back, he's now all of a sudden aggressive. And he grabs Max, and he's like, come on, Max, let's go to the mirror. Come on, let's do it. Like, peer pressuring him to do this against his will. And then essentially shoves him under the light, turns the light on, and sends Max into the mirror. Now, when he gets sent into the mirror, there's also this back and forth inside the mirror with Max's point of view, and outside of the mirror with Aaron and Zach. And Aaron looks at Zach, and she looks at his earrings like, something's wrong with you. And she hits her. She's like, oh, this might not be Zach. So while in the mirror, Max is just sitting there freezing cold in this really weird looking place, very funky editing and effects. It is the 90s, y'all. And he gets a hand, and he, it's lifts him up, and there's an identical mirror version of himself. And he's like, hi, Max. He's like, this is, embrace the cold, Max. Okay. So this being wants to replace him. Meanwhile, the Zach, so that's pretty much not the real Zach, is trying to stall Aaron long enough to not to turn the light off, so the real Max won't come back. So when Max hears the plan by this other Max, he runs away from him and tries to find a way out. And he starts running to a door, and then he sees all these mirrors with people that look really sad and depressed, and there's like a montage of that. And then he sees Zach in the mirror, and he's like, wait a minute. He's like, Zach must be out there. So he gets, he musters up enough energy. He starts to get really cold, but, Aaron manages to turn the light off and succeeds, which brings Max back. And when he does, he's like covered in frost. He's freezing. And Zach picks him up. He's like, get up. He's like, you're going back in there. And Max is like, no, I'm not. And they start getting into a tussle. Then out of nowhere, Lefty comes out of nowhere, the ball, and smashes the mirror. And this sends this version of Zach or whatever into the mirror, and something happens. I don't want to spoil it from here. But let's just say the real Zach, maybe or maybe not, comes back, and everything seems kind of normal again. Well, that's until the very end of the episode, when the ending comes, and there's a scene in the kitchen with Max, his father, and Noah, and let's just say something happens. And something may not be right. And that's essentially Let's Get Invisible's episode. So, let's start off with the positives about Let's Get Invisible's episode, y'all. Let's Get Invisible, I mean, the book, I hate to compare the episodes to the book, and I really want to save a lot what I want to say for the book versus episode video, but let's just keep it simple for this, right? The book is a slow burn, 140-page book. It's one of the longest Goosebumps books ever in terms of page count, right? The episode condenses the source material down, makes it digestible, and normally that can actually improve a book, but not necessarily the case here all the way, but it is more digestible. It is a quick and easy type of watch. Once you put it on, you don't really want to turn it off. There's something about it that captures the book very well. The atmosphere of the attic pretty much, emulates what I was thinking in my head while reading the book. And the cast of characters, Kevin Zegers, he's a kind of a well-known actor. He was in Dawn of the Dead. You might know him from the Air Bud movies. He plays Noah. He was a really good child actor for a little brother actor. He was really good. The guy who plays Max, minus the fact that he does not have any expression whatsoever with emotions with his eyes or anything above his nose. Like, he can only make mouth expressions. He has the same look, a dazed look, the whole episode. But minus that, he's actually a pretty good actor. Just maybe needed a little bit of coaching there. And Aaron was fine. And we'll get into Zach in just a minute. But yeah, the pacing rocked. The premise was cool. I liked the way the mirror looked. Some of the effects were fun, especially near the end when Max goes into the mirror. That was pretty cool. How they made that look cold. For 90s, working with what they had, that was pretty good. That was all right. But other than that, I have some negatives with it. This is one that, while it's not necessarily an episode with a lot to praise, it doesn't really have that much to have a go against it, but there are some evident things to me, and they're more little things, little, maybe some mild medium things here, right? So, I'll start off with Zach. He's clearly 16 years old. How he's trying to be passed off like a 12-year-old kid is beyond me. He's clearly hit puberty. He sounds like he could possibly even be a 21-year-old man. How did he get cast? I don't know. And like I said, some of his acting is really bad, y'all. He has good facial expressions when he goes evil. He actually has some good presence there. But the way he delivers dialogue, and I don't know if it was ADR, I don't know if it was just Ron Oliver coaching him to talk like this, but some scenes he's in is really bad. It's almost like chocolate chip pancakes bad from Scarecrow Walks at Midnight. Like the whole scene where he's watching the ball. You know what I'm talking about. That's a hilarious scene because it's so terribly acted. But yeah, Zach, he's kind of I hate to use this term even for this story because the real villain is the mirror, but I guess Zach, the fake Zach, is the villain, and he was pretty scary. So he's kind of like a catch-22. There's some gives and goes with him, but Zach is kind of a negative. Another negative I have is that this story is already a small-scale story, y'all, and in the book, it suffers the same. It suffers the same sins the book has. There's just no scenery changes. I was hoping with an episode like this, right? There's so much room to maybe go take it out, take some antics out to the backyard, take it out to the neighborhood, take it out to the cul-de-sac, maybe take it out to school. Something. But they just kept it in the attic and kept it kind of a stale setting. It was kind of stale, even though it was atmospheric. It was still kind of stale the whole episode. Like, not much changes. It's probably really cheap to make, minus the effects. But it does have some, some, I don't know, it has some setbacks to it, y'all. Kind of like the book did. Very similar. And that's just inherent with the story itself. I'm not going to blame anybody, really, from the team that made this episode. Really, it's, for the most part, a pretty solid adaptation, but it just has the sins the book had. And then, good old Ron Oliver. Ron Oliver is kind of hit or miss with me sometimes, where he just has these things that he does in his work that make no sense. I've talked about Locker 13 from Nightmare Room. This is kind of reminiscent here. When they're at the kitchen table and they're playing the Let's Get Invisible song, it's like a horror type of song. And then you play this funky, weird type of music along with it, kind of blasting it almost. It's just bizarre. And like some things they do with the parents, like the way the mom dresses and the awkwardness with the parents at the kitchen table scene, it's just bizarre. Like, it almost in every single Ron Oliver episode, almost. It's, I don't know. I just don't like it. It's just, he has this style sometimes that just really feels off. I don't like the music in the episode, for the most part, as a result, because he just goes this whole schlock route with it. The music really took back part of the experience. Now, the normal music, when it goes, like throughout the episode, that's good. But when you do the psychedelic, whatever the crap this was, stop it. Stop it, Ron Oliver. Stop it. Stop it. Or whoever is in charge of music here, please stop it. Yeah, and then, I don't know. There's just, the book is such a commentary about, like, it's basically one huge metaphor for drug addiction, right? And you go throughout this whole story of the book. Like I said, I hate comparing the book, but I have to for this, just because it doesn't really capture what the book was doing. And it can't really do that, I guess, in 21 minutes. I mean, you do kind of see the Noah and Max evolution like the book, but it's just really, I don't know, y'all. It comes off kind of pish-posh. You don't really get that commentary there. It is there. You can kind of grasp onto it, but it goes nowhere near as deep as the book with it, and that kind of disappoints me because that's what made the book so special. And the episode is just kind of a shell of it. So, yeah, in terms of story, it's just there. It's just one of those episodes that just kind of hobble along and just do story as it is, as it comes, I guess. But, yeah, I view that as a negative just because it just feels kind of whatever. They made it because they made it. Because they could make it, and it's relatively cheap to make. But, alright, so from a 0 to 5 star basis, right? This one is such a weird episode, y'all, to rate. From all the issues I have with it, I decided to I'll collectively deduct 1.2 points off and give this about a 3.8 out of 5. The only reason why I'm giving this an average rating, a C or a high C, maybe even a C plus. I'd be maybe a low C plus for this. 3.8 out of 5 is pretty respectable. But the only reason why is that it doesn't get much wrong. It improves the pacing. You know, it's fun. It has its atmosphere, but it's just kind of bland. You know, it's not as rich as the book, and it just comes off like a shell of the book, if that makes any sense. So, yeah, it's a respectable episode. It's just not all that spectacular to me. I do recommend it though. If you haven't watched Let's Get Invisible's episode, go check this out. This is a great episode. I guarantee you that you'll probably enjoy it more than you won't like it. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Let's Get Invisible's episode. Let me know down in the comment section. Do you love this or do you hate this? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.